Hey guys, today I want to talk about an important subject that's been on my mind lately, and that is what is killing creativity in the games industry in 2024. Is it an overemphasis of developers using the same safe, tried and true design formulas in their game? Is it just too much pressure being put on by the higher-ups and the corporate culture? Is it the diversity and sensitivity overcorrection we're hearing a lot about in the headlines? It could be any of these, but I do feel a lot of these problems all lead back to the toxic positivity workplace and an internal culture that's happening at many studios. I'm an artist and a creator myself, and creatives need feedback. We just need feedback to improve. It's impossible without it. Without good constructive criticism, it's just too hard to refine our ideas. We can't challenge assumptions and promote growth. Constructive criticism fuels innovation, it prevents stagnation, and it strengthens our final product. Whether that's an image, whether you're making a 3D printed toy, whether you're making a fully developed game. Without it, because I've seen it with my students, I've experienced this in the past, creatives risk isolation and limited potential. And we're seeing this today in development studios when they're prioritizing safety, it restricts creative freedom, right? Artists feel pressured to conform. It's going to dilute the authenticity. It's going to prioritize inclusivity and political correctness over storytelling, and of course, compromise the immersive gameplay. Ubisoft is going through this right now. They're making all the headlines for all the wrong reasons. It's hard to avoid it. They were once known for their innovation and bold characters. They're now facing a pivotal moment, mirroring a broader industry trend where toxic positivity is stifling genuine creativity and evolution. Now, before some of you jump to conclusions, this isn't simply about adding inclusivity and diversity to games. That's not the problem here, and I do think that is a good thing, especially when it's done right. In games like Baldur's Gate 3, Overwatch, The Last of Us 2, right? They all are very diverse and very good games. It's when a company becomes afraid of offending anyone, when they tiptoe around every decision, everything stagnates. Everything becomes safe, everything becomes soft. This seems to be what is Ubisoft's problem lately. It's been reported that individuals are shielded from criticism, they're assured that everything they do is right, and this is stifling both ambition and ignores the needs of the audience. My own creative students understand this, and that's why part of this video is just going to be me giving some feedback in the form of a paint over to one of my students. They understand this, they want to improve, and they know feedback from someone more experienced than them can often push them beyond their current threshold. On top of that, I'm going to be talking about Ubisoft's current situation, how negative emotions play a role in creativity, how toxic positivity suppresses honest feedback, and the link between toxic positivity and conformity. My name is Tyler Edlin. I've been a freelance and independent artist now for close to 15 years. I work with big clients and I love instructing students as well. Toxic positivity discourages honest expression, critical thinking, and acceptance of failure. All three of these things are critical for creative growth and development. And as a result, lately, many of Ubisoft games have been seen as formulaic or lacking innovation. This is, of course, all contributing to the declining public trust and the underwhelming game releases. It's been a rough year for them. I have liked some of these titles, but they have all been commercially not so successful and very expensive. The company's reluctance to address a lot of their issues transparency led to reputational damage and internal turmoil. Yeah, they have a load of other issues going on. They're getting seemingly sabotaged by Tencent, one of their big shareholders, to force a buyout. But in today's video, I do want to keep this subject on the toxic positivity side of things. And I do this with a heavy heart. I have a lot of former students working in a various Ubisoft office. I have friends that work at Ubisoft. None of what I'm about to discuss brings me any sort of joy or satisfaction. Now, if you look back, many of the greatest achievements in art, innovation, and creativity have all emerged from periods of intense personal challenge and hardship. Look at successful artists such as Vincent van Gogh, Frida Kahlo, Georgia O'Keeffe, they've all struggled. They all had very difficult parts of their lives. Struggle teaches resilience, and this often fosters deeper emotional depth, and this often enough translates into more meaningful and impactful work. Personally, I have been a professional so far for about 15 years, but despite all that experience, I often do find it challenging to push my own art forward. A little context here, I do come from a middle-class family with very supportive parents. I'm lucky to have that, and they're still happily married. And as an adult, I have so far been very fortunate to face little hardship so far. So when I look at some of my peers who have actually overcome some serious struggles, I do recognize that my path has been easier in many ways, but creatively, I do find it hard to grow. And thankfully, I've always just kind of relied on my work ethic and discipline to keep moving me forward. Creativity thrives on discomfort, as innovation often stems from frustration, dissatisfaction, and the complexity of emotions. These emotions can ignite a desire for change or improvement, sparking new ideas and approaches. Additionally, they help creatives tap into the broader emotional spectrum, and this results in more authentic and emotionally resonant work. True creative breakthroughs emerge through experimentation and failure, and toxic positivity suppresses this by instilling a fear of negativity. By invalidating emotions such as anger, sadness, frustration, and fear, toxic positivity strips any kind of creative and emotional depth that fuels creativity. And sadly, from what I read and what I hear, this has been plaguing a lot of video game studios as of lately. Now, this is why I've decided to build my career personally from a place where I'm going to freelance, where I can juggle a lot of different opportunities and where I can remain absolutely flexible on what kind of projects I take on and how long they kind of go for, the job security, the benefits, but none of that's really guaranteed anymore. And even if you are in those positions, there's a lot of studios that have a very kind of toxic kind of workplace. Ubisoft is just like the most recent example, as they can't stay out of the headlines. They design their games on full alert. Ubisoft's developers said that they only design certain characters and maybe to an extent even gameplay mechanics so that they won't offend any of their employees. And specifically when asked how Ubisoft internalizes and discusses general criticism from players and the rest of the industry, the developer said at a high level, they rarely talk about it. At a project level, they brush it off simply as toxic gamer talk. And this response just implies a culture where feedback, especially critical or harsh feedback, is not taken seriously or constructively. This attitude is, of course, probably going to foster a disconnect between the development teams and the gaming community, their audience, their customers. This, of course, results in products that feel out of touch with what a lot of players want. Now, as artists, we need to keep moving forward with a critical eye on our work in order to maintain creative, innovative momentum. Fear of criticism is holding us back and collapsing major studios with millions of dollars at stake and people's livelihood. This makes it evident that as artists, we need to take responsibility in our own hands and continue learning to stay relevant. And that's why I'm excited to announce that Skillshare is the sponsor of today's video. A fellow YouTuber you guys may know, Toniko Pantoa, has a great Skillshare course called Character Design for Animation. Design and craft memorable personalities. I love this course because we are at a time that the industry needs creative, innovative designers. And this is a great class to check out. But Skillshare offers so much more. It is the largest online learning community platform, providing a vast array of inspiring courses taught by real-world industry professionals. So, for example, Toniko has worked on awesome movies like How to Train Your Dragon 3 and The Croods 2, with many more. So whether you're a novice or somebody just looking to elevate your own skills, Skillshare provides learning pathways to help you grow in many creative disciplines. Skillshare has project-based courses, so by the end of Character Design for Animation, you'll have a solid body of work ready for a portfolio. But beyond character design, you could take valuable classes on illustration, drawing, digital painting, any artistic skill you'd like to develop. Try it for free because Skillshare has a special offer right now where the first 500 people to use my link below can get a 1-month free trial. So in 30 days, you can make a lot of progress in your own creative growth with no risk. So I definitely recommend checking out Toniko's class and explore many of the other awesome courses on Skillshare. Link below in the description. Thank you for Skillshare for sponsoring. Like I said, creativity truly does flourish when critical feedback is implemented and given. It does in fact sharpen ideas and it promotes growth. And this is the exact opposite of what's happening in the studios at Ubisoft. It's reported that many of the developers work in an environment of fear and conformity, where employees are reluctant to speak up, afraid of being misunderstood or even losing their jobs. Of course, when this happens, you're just kind of creating an echo chamber. Every idea is going to be treated as a positive one. Everything is going to get pushed forward. Nothing is going to be evaluated. Nothing is going to be tested. I think this is a huge part of why that game Concord failed. They built it in an echo chamber and they pushed away any sort of outside feedback. Of course, all of this just reinforces that cycle of toxic positivity, and they're just trying to push safe content forward. Safe content itself is problematic because it leads to limited opportunities on the gameplay side, with the stories, with the characters. Star Wars Outlaws, right, released like a month ago, and it's very underwhelming, for a lot of the fans and the customers. Some even call it a complete mess. I don't have it personally. My brother does. I can kind of just speak from the frustrations I heard from him. Anyway, what should have been something truly special really became a showcase for everything wrong with modern game development, even for Star Wars. Right? They had to work with Disney, which probably would have shut down a lot of attempts at depicting a true criminal underworld with real cruelty and drama. It makes it feel like it lacks a sense of authenticity because of that safe, predictable storytelling. The shallow protagonists, the lack of immersion, and Ubisoft's standard formulaic gameplay. Toxic positivity undermines genuine improvement by substituting meaningful feedback with empty affirmations, which ultimately stunts, our creative process. I think this is evident in the characterization of the protagonist, who comes across as bland or shallow. It's important to clarify here that this is a lack of depth. It's not due to the character being female or any other nonsense like that, but rather reflects a failure to develop her fully. And of course, this pressure to maintain a consistent, upbeat demeanor stifles open dialogue about these challenges and failures. This culture of toxic positivity contributes to their struggle to produce anything meaningful. When employees fear that their ideas may be deemed too risky or too offensive, mediocrity becomes the norm. And something's bad, right? When pushing boundaries is regarded as a liability rather than an opportunity for growth. And of course, all this pretty much led to a final product that feels just safe, inauthentic, uninspired, and for those experiencing the horde of technical difficulties, unplayable. And I'm not here to throw shade at anyone that enjoyed the game. If you like it, that's phenomenal. I'm just reinstating what I hear the general consensus is on this. And of course, this toxic positivity problem is not just specific to gaming and development. It's happening everywhere. But these games, these AAA games, or as Ubisoft called it, like these quadruple-A titles, they're taking an increasingly long time to produce, and the turnovers of senior members in a studio like this mean many negative side effects. Creative stagnation is absolutely just the tip. There's a lack of mentorships, discredited project quality, there's a loss of institutional knowledge, there's a lack of leadership skills. There's a lot going on. This is definitely a very loaded and serious thing that's happening. Like I read just as last night, if Ubisoft let off like half their employees, nothing would actually change in the development of their upcoming Assassin's Creed, because they don't have the core talent working in-house at the studios, not enough to sustain a project that size. They outsource most of it anyway. Most of the good or the hard work getting done on these games are just getting shoveled off to someone else either way. So of course they're just bloating their budget. And again, I'm getting off topic. But if we just take a moment to look at some of the more successful titles that have come out, recently, like Lies of P, Baldur's Gate 3, Black Myth Wukong, Astrobot. These titles were all made on much smaller budgets and by much smaller teams that have been together for a lot longer. And yeah, their upcoming Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to be a pivotal moment for this studio. Many hope that Ubisoft would thoughtfully explore Japan's rich history and culture, particularly through the story of Yasuki, the main character, as they have done with many historical figures in the previous titles. I loved Assassin's Creed 2, I love 3, I love Black Flag. I have, big history with the series. But the character Yasuki has raised a lot of concerns, and the cultural appropriation and how his narrative is adapted and commodified by its creators outside of Japanese culture. And this is not about Yasuki's race, but rather about the delicate handling of Japan's history and cultural depth, which many fear will be overshadowed or misrepresented, leading to a disconnect between the creators and the audience. Part of this is because perhaps maybe their focus wasn't on getting the story right. Their focus was on making sure the game aligned for a modern audience. Bringing this back to the studio environment. If you're a team member, are you going to raise your hand and say, hey, maybe this is not the best direction to go in? Like if I were working in a studio, I probably wouldn't say as much either, especially if my livelihood depended on it. And from what I hear, a lot of Ubisoft's developers in this toxic positivity environment, they don't want to speak up either. They feel that they're going to lose their job. They feel that they'll get mislabeled or called a bigot or a racist. And that's not the case at all. But when everyone is expected to agree and only focus on the positive, there's just little room for critical feedback or the diverse perspectives that drive true growth. And of course, recently Ubisoft faced significant backlash following the announcement of the delay for this game, right? Shadows. And they canceled their planned Tokyo showcase, which just happened, a week or two ago. This move has been interpreted as a lack of commitment to promoting this game properly in the key market, especially one that holds high expectations for culturally sensitive and authentic representations like Japan. And it's true, they probably do need to fix a lot of technical aspects with this unreleased game, but they also need to address the lack of authenticity created by their workplace culture. My students always ask me, how important is the accuracy in our designs? If they're coming up with a design, maybe it's even a fictional place, but it's based out of Egypt, maybe ancient Greek or Rome, or maybe even like Japan. Well, the difference is simply between applying or referencing something and directly representing it, which what this Assassin's Creed kind of set out to do, because they said, hey, we're doing a real historical figure, we're going to keep this really authentic. They said this was their words. But when it comes to like student work and you're trying to do this, if you're building a fictional setting, even, this will often come down to the subtlety, the context and the purpose behind your approach. Both methods have their uses, but they serve different roles in communication, art, storytelling, or even game design. And it seems that Ubisoft is doing a degree of historical revisioning, and because they are so obsessed with pleasing a Western audience, they are completely missing the mark with the Japanese audience entirely, with many of them seemingly offended and just not happy with how their culture and their history is shown here. And this is just to kind of, as a nice contrasting point, the original Ghost of Tsushima, they really loved. They really respected it. They thought they did an amazing job. So I wonder, what was the difference in studio cultures between the two games? Now I'm hearing that Assassin's Creed Shadows is mixing up a lot of specifics between different Asian countries, from their architecture to maybe how the seasons and the agriculture systems work, to the different types of flags, banners, and symbols. And then, of course, they showed that Funko Pop of the Torii Gate statue, which is like a huge no-no for them. It represents a deep historic and cultural meaning for them. And they feel, of course, rightfully so, that it's largely disrespecting them. But yeah, I think I've gone on long enough. I just want to say, as creators, we do kind of have to embrace our vulnerability, as hard as that may seem. Now, I'm not saying, of course, that we should be dicks or hostile to each other. That never helps anyone. But constructive criticism, and I say this as an instructor myself, is at the heart of improvement. I stagnated for years because my pride was too high to ask for help. and my work just grew exponentially slower than a lot of my peers. I hate that part of my career because I should have just asked for help. And that's what happened with me. A lot of my art, my creativity, it felt shallow. It wasn't progressing at all. I couldn't objectively or more objectively look at my own designs and form a critical opinion on them. I've gotten much better at that in more recent years, but there has been a period in my own growth where that was absolutely problematic. Again, that was because I didn't ask for help and because I wasn't really struggling. I was just kind of meandering my way through things. I did lack focus, but again, I'm getting a little off track there. And I think this is part of a larger ongoing industry debate as a whole, where the industry is struggling to evolve while maintaining a lot of its core audience, particularly for older franchises. Studios like Ubisoft need to remember their legacy was built on taking risks. Studios now need to find a balance between making games that resonate with everyone without diluting their creativity or alienating their long-term fans. Anyways, guys, thanks for sticking with me in this video. This is just a lot of stuff I've been reading. It's been stuff that's on my mind, and I just wanted to talk about it. Have you ever been a victim of a toxic, positive sort of workspace or culture? Has it stunted your own growth? Let me know below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the matter. I'll catch you guys next time. I do have links below for everything you might need. Later.